Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. Welcome back to our Uddhava-gita course. Now we are in this very interesting chapter where Krishna is describing these ancient practices of the renunciants. And the idea was that after you've had your life, you've had your married life, you've had your children, and then at a certain point, around the age of 50, 55, the person would leave everything behind and go live in the forest. This is called vanaprastha, literally like vana, forest, prastha, stay in the forest. So they would leave social life, city life, and go live a very simple, renounced life in the forest. And now this life would be focused on deprivations. So it would be, a life of not seeking comfort anymore, of trying to make you become detached from the body. So we saw in the last class the practice of sitting surrounded by burning fires under the midday sun, or standing up to the neck in a cold river in the winter. So this kind of practice that would, stress the body and make you want to disconnect your consciousness from your material body. Now today we're going to see an even harsher practice, and then we're going to move on to the final stage, which would be the sannyas stage, which would be even further renunciation from the vanaprastha. Because in the vanaprastha phase, you'd still have a house, you could be there with your wife, you could have some stuff, and you could have you'd have a roof over your head. There was some level of amenities. But then in the sannyas life, the idea was then you just give up everything, and we'll see that today. But I'll warn you, it's going to be a little scary. The first things Krishna's going to say is going to be a little harsh, so don't take it wrong. So anyway, here we are in the 11th canto, 18th chapter, verse 10. And of course, if you want to watch all the previous classes, there are over 100 classes now. If you want to watch all the previous classes of this Uddhava-gita course, become a member of this channel. There's instructions here in the description of the video, and then you can access Uddhava-gita.com, where you can see the whole course organized. Okay, so Krishna said just in the last verse, in the last class, that a person who would perform these harsh penances would, at the time of death, be promoted to Maharloka, to a very high system, planetary system within the universe for great souls and great sages. Not yet the kingdom of God, not yet full liberation, but a very elevated, pure place in the universe. So then he says this in verse 10. One who with long endeavor executes this painful but exalted penance, and this painful and exalted penance was that stuff I was talking about, being surrounded by fires and living in the forest and being in the river. So this kind of harsh treatment, which awards ultimate liberation simply to achieve insignificant sense gratification, must be considered the greatest fool. So, if you do all that just so you can be promoted to a wonderful planet, then you're the greatest fool. This is an interesting topic, because you see this in many religions. If you study early Christianity, like the first millennium of Christianity, there was a lot of this, a lot of like suffer in this life, suffer. And then you have this wonderful heavenly life. And they would focus on the pleasures of it. Oh, the beautiful gardens, and the fruit's amazing, and the food, and you have like a mansion for yourself. It was like a lot of focus, kind of like on a gratification of the senses. It wasn't focused like, then you can join God in service. And, it's not like the Christian tradition where like, no, you go there and then you can serve Krishna. You can make gardens for him. You can dance with him. for him. You can play, with him, for his pleasure. You can serve him as his, as a mother, as a lover, as a friend. No, it's different. It's not the focus, because they didn't have this concept of a life, of what you do with God once you get out of here. So it was more of an idea of just heaven. They kind of created this idea, no, it's just going to be like a really nice place. And it's going to be, with their concept of a nice place, beautiful fruits and trees and ample food and nice house and, nobody's stealing, robbing, no sickness. It's nice. So, but Krishna is saying, look, if you do all these, and then they would recommend these penances as well in the Christian tradition. You've heard about them. So they would recommend these harsh penances as well, like a harsh life of denial. The more denial there was, the better. Sometimes they would even glorify people who had horrible diseases like leprosy. Leprosy sometimes was seen as a divine thing because it was such a horrible state. There was so much suffering. That was like, oh, see, that's beautiful that you're suffering so much. So they kind of they glorified suffering in the idea that with that you will achieve, after death, you will achieve, wonderful pleasures. So that was a common theme right from the beginning of Christianity. But Krishna is saying, look, if you do all these things and all you're thinking about is the sense gratification you're going to get, then you must be considered the greatest fool. Because it's you're going to do all that? That's dumb. If you just want to have pleasure, just be a nice person here. That's okay already. If all you want is a nice house, good food, nice situation, just stay here and be dharmic. You don't even have to think of God. Don't worry about God. Forget spirituality. Spirituality is not about getting sense gratification. Spirituality is about love. It's about connecting you with God. It's about serving God. It's something else completely. If you just want a nice life, just be a dharmic person. If you practice your dharma, then you will get good karma. That's how you get good karma. You just do your dharma nicely. It's said even that if you spend 100 lifetimes practicing your dharma, you get the post of Lord Brahma. Talk about sense gratification. Talk about high status. You get to be the Lord of a universe. Lord Brahma is the Lord of this universe. He's the guy in charge. He's the CEO. You get to be the CEO of a whole universe just for you. You're in charge. So that's just 100 lifetimes practicing your dharma. So Krishna says, don't do this just for sense gratification. Understand why we're practicing spiritual life. Purport: although the process of vanaprastha described by Lord Krishna is so glorious that even the consolation prize is promotion to Maharloka, one who consciously performs this process for such promotion to heaven is certainly the greatest fool. The Lord does not want this process to be abused or exploited by materialistic rascals, for the ultimate goal is love of Godhead. Now, fasten your seatbelts, because this is a strange verse. Could be easily misinterpreted. Please do not misinterpret this verse. Don't do anything foolish based on this verse. Verse 11. If the vanaprastha is taken by old age, and because of his trembling body, is no longer able to execute his prescribed duties, he should place the sacrificial fire within his heart by meditation, then fixing his mind on me, he should enter into the fire and give up his body. So Krishna is saying, If the vanaprastha gets too old and he can't keep doing the nice, because he had to do yagyas. This vanaprastha, he had to perform these yagyas. He had to do the fire sacrifice every day. He had to do other, Krishna described, he had to do some other regular rituals, Vedic rituals. And he said, look, if the vanaprastha gets too old and can't do the rituals anymore, then he should bring that ritual first into his heart. Just bring that sacrificial fire into the heart. And then self-immolation. He should walk into a fire and die. He should kill himself. Suicide. Walking into a fire. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Don't do this. Do not do this. Okay? Do not think this is a reason for you to take your life. Please do not do this. Okay? This is not for you to practice. Okay? Don't do this. So do not ever take your life. Your life is very important, very rare, very wonderful. If you're even hearing this, then your life is incredible because you're in touch with Krishna's teachings. So your life is absolutely brilliant. And you've waited billions of years to get a human life like this where you can have access to Krishna's teachings. So do not consider taking your life, please. But anyway, so this is what Krishna is saying about this vanaprastha. Look, if you can't do it anymore, then you can take your own life. You can end your life. This is the way you can end your life. It takes a lot to walk into a fire, though. This is a tough way to go, right? And of course, it's not mentioned here, but as you know, for a long time in India, there was this practice where the women had to do that. When their husbands died, they had to walk into the fire. We can see this happens with the Pandavas. With the Pandavas, and when the Pandu is on the pyre, and then Queen Kunti wanted to walk in, but Madri said, no. I could never be such a good mother to your children as you can be to my children. I don't trust my motherly abilities to be able to take care of your children as if they were mine, but I know that you will take care of my children as if they were yours. So I will go in. So Madri walks into the fire. So this was a prasati. Of course, thank God they made it illegal, but it used to be because sometimes they would force the women into the fire. So they made it illegal. Good move by India. Made it illegal now. But this was a practice then, sati, you would walk into the funeral pyre of your dead husband. And this is where the person will just walk into a fire. We make a giant sacrificial fire and just walk in and end his life or her life like that. So harsh, very harsh. This is all. Again, do not misunderstand this in any way. Purport. Since the process of vanaprastha is recommended for those nearing the end of life, there's always the likelihood that one will prematurely succumb to the symptoms of old age and be unable to reach the final stage of sannyas. If one simply cannot carry on his religious duties due to old age, it is here advised that he fix the mind in Lord Krishna and enter into the sacrificial fire. Although this may not be possible in the modern age, we can appreciate the absolute seriousness of going back home, back to Godhead, as evidenced in this verse. Okay, so now that vanaprastha has been explained, Krishna is going to transition to the next and the last ashram, the last stage of life, sannyas. Verse 12. If the vanaprastha, understanding that even promotion to Brahmaloka is a miserable situation, develops complete detachment from all possible results of fruitive activities, then he may take the sannyas order of life. Okay, so now the vanaprastha understands that no material result coming out of this practice of vanaprastha is worth anything. Even if it were beyond Maharloka to Brahmaloka, which is just the last stage, the highest possible situation in the material universe, the highest possible achievement in karmic universe, material life inside this universe, Brahmaloka. But not only do you not want to go to Brahmaloka, but you understand that life there is miserable. Miserable. Can you imagine? We're like eager to live in a nice neighborhood in our city. Sometimes you might yearn to live in a different country that's nicer than your country. Or you just want to live in a nicer house in your neighborhood. But here you understand that even Brahmaloka is miserable. Then, with that level of understanding and detachment, okay, Krishna says, now you may take the sannyas order of life. Verse 13. Having worshipped me according to scriptural injunctions, and having given all of one's property to the sacrificial priest, one should place the fire within oneself. Thus, with the mind completely detached, one should enter the sannyas order of life. So now, a sannyas, of course, these days there's lots of different sannyas. You know, the whole modern era, sannyas became something else, and it became quite common to see sannyas and, you know, and Rolls Royces and, you know, Rolex, you know, beautiful, you know, mansions, etc., flying first class. But no, the real sannyas was this real practice of sannyas. Not sannyas as Krishna describes in Bhagavad-gita. In this channel, I describe the Bhagavad-gita verse where Krishna talks about sannyas, where we all have to practice sannyas. And it's a sannyas of being detached from the result of one's activities. That proper state of karma yoga. So that we all have to practice. So Krishna uses sannyas, he uses this same word, sannyas. So that kind of sannyas as described in Bhagavad Gita, that's for all of us. We have to do that now, because if you don't, you're just going to die full of attachments and have to try again next life. So you might as well get it right this life. So sannyas like that is for everyone. This is sannyas in the sense of the varnashrama system. That's what we're talking about here in the previous chapter and in this chapter. So this was like a cultural system, a societal system for organizing society. So this is sannyas in the sense of a societal practice, a cultural practice within society. So this sannyas, a proper sannyas, was like this. You would give everything, nothing. You keep nothing. You give everything. You'd have a ceremony and you'd give everything to the priest. You keep everything you have. You'd keep nothing. And then, of course, you're no longer doing the Vedic rituals. So now, because, you know, everyone in the varnashrama system, everyone in society, in Vedic culture, they had to do the rituals. They had their fire yagyas, they had the different rituals. But in sannyas, that's it. You also take that ritual inside. It becomes just a spiritual thing. It's just an internal, you get the concept, the mood, the purpose of that ritual, and you take it in. And with that, because you won't have things, you won't have things to be able to make the ritual. You won't have the utensils, you won't have the stuff necessary for it. So it becomes an internal process, and then you enter the sannyas order of life. Verse 14. This man taking sannyas is going to surpass us and go back home, back to Godhead. Thus thinking, the demigods create stumbling blocks on the path of the sannyasi by appearing before him in the shape of his former wife or other women and attractive objects. But the sannyasi should pay the demigods and their manifestations no heed. So this is you've seen this in other traditions, like kind of similar to the idea of, Jesus in the desert, the temptations, Buddha also under the tree, the banyan tree, the temptations. And you have to reject all the temptations. Temptations for power, for fame, for sex, for money, for this, for that, whatever. Reject everything. So Krishna is saying here, the demigods, they have, and you see this all the time in the Bhagavad Purana, the demigods are always trying to trip up these renouncants. They do all sorts of things. There's lots of stories. The better ones, they will actually send, the apsaras from heaven, these heavenly women will come down and their clothes will fall off. And these are literally like heavenly women from heaven. So they're the most beautiful woman on earth would be 1/10,000th of the beauty of this heavenly apsara. And it would come and she'd be all sexy. And, and these renouncants would be in the forest, living alone in the forest, and this lady would come all gorgeous and just try to tempt them, just to get them off the path, just to make them trip up and lose the path. So Krishna is saying, look, this is going to happen. They're going to tempt you. So you have to reject, pay no heed to these things. The demigods are empowered with universal administration, and by their potency may appear as the former wife of a sannyasi or as other women, so that the sannyasi gives up his strict vows and becomes entangled in sense gratification. Lord Krishna here encourages all sannyasis by telling them, pay no attention to such illusory manifestations, continue your duties, and go back home, back to Godhead. Okay, verse 15. If the sannyasi desires to wear something besides a mere kopina, he may use another cloth around his waist and hips to cover the kopina. Otherwise, if there's no emergency, he should not accept anything besides his danda and water pot. So this is all a sannyasi could own. So the kopina is it's like an underwear. It's like a little piece of cloth that you wrap around your privates. So you can wear that. So if you really need to, you can wear another cloth over that, covering your kopina. But, that's like an extra thing. It's not just like some other piece of cloth over your kopina that's extra. That's like luxury. But aside from that, you have your danda, which is your walking stick, and a water pot. So that's it. Because a water pot, you needed a water pot, for cleansing, for drinking. So you needed that just to maintain cleanliness, socham. So you always had your water with you. So basically like a walking stick and a water bottle. That's all you get. So of course, people don't. Well, some people still do. There's still groups of renouncants in India. The culture still permits such practice. If you try to do this in other countries, you will probably be arrested or taken to some institution. So if you start walking around just in your underwear and with a water bottle and a walking stick, you won't go very far. You'll be institutionalized very quickly. So this is all they would walk around, just a danda, water pot, and just a piece of cloth around their waist. Purport: a sannyasi attracted to material possessions will spoil his worship of Lord Krishna. Verse 16. A saintly person should step or place his foot on the ground only after verifying with his eyes that there are no living creatures, such as insects, who might be injured by his foot. He should drink water only after filtering it through a portion of his cloth, and he should speak only words that possess the purity of truth. Similarly, he should perform only those activities his mind has carefully ascertained to be pure. So these are actually good recommendations. Some of this stuff we should practice ourselves. So of course, walking, this is something, because I learned this decades ago, and you just can't help doing it. And I used to live in a place with a lot of insects. I used to live in a place in Brazil, and there's so many insects. Now I live in the UK, and here they practically have like no insects. But there was like insect land. It was pretty much like the land of the insects, and we were kind of there in their land. So there was a lot of insects, especially like tons of ants. It was like just tons of insects. So, and I had this practice, I would literally walk around and, and make sure I wasn't stepping on it, because you don't want to squish 10 ants with one step. So you'd walk around. So this is a practice you can actually do. Walk, make sure you're not stepping on other creatures. Now, you should filter the water, because in the water, of course, you could also get, there's still creatures that are going to go through the cloth. But anyway, so make sure you don't drink something as well. You don't want to drink a larger, because we do drink the microbial, but make sure you don't drink like a larger insect. You wouldn't want to do that anyway. So, purifying your water. Now, this you should definitely practice. This is a big deal. You should only speak words that possess the purity of truth. This is very important. Truth is one of the major pillars of Dharma. Satyam is very important. You will destroy your life. You will make yourself a fool. You become a very low person if you don't speak the truth. It's unacceptable. I have no tolerance for it. If people don't speak the truth of me, I just think they're like the lowest people. I just think, well, this person is completely low, I want distance. I don't want to have anything to do with this person. If you don't have truth, there's just like, you don't want to deal with that person, and you certainly don't want to be that person. So lack of truthfulness is very serious. It's completely unacceptable. It's a very low level of consciousness. So this is very important. Only speak words that possess the purity of truth. Of course, Krishna in Bhagavad-gita goes further. Not only does it have to be true, but it has to be pleasant. And it has to be necessary. So Krishna goes further. There's a video here on this channel about how to speak according to Bhagavad-gita. So it's very important we practice this. Now, and this is also very important. Similarly, he should perform only those activities his mind has carefully ascertained to be pure. This is very important. Don't do anything that you don't know is correct. Do things that are within Dharma. If you're not sure about it, maybe you shouldn't do it. So make sure your actions are dharmic. Very important instructions. Purport. While walking, a saintly person is careful not to kill any tiny creatures on the ground. Similarly, he filters his drinking water through cloth to avoid swallowing small creatures living within the water. Speaking untruth simply for sense gratification is detrimental to devotional service and should be avoided. Speaking in personal philosophy and glorifying the sense gratification of the material world, even that found in heavenly planets, contaminates the heart and must be avoided by those desiring perfection in the loving service of the Lord. By serious consideration, one can understand that any activity other than devotional service to Lord Krishna has no ultimate value. Therefore, one should exclusively engage in the purified activities of Krishna consciousness, which means practicing your dharma as a loving offering to Krishna. If what you're doing isn't dharma, if you don't want to offer what you're doing to Krishna, don't do it. It's not a good thing to do. Well, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed that. Have the rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love.